Welcome to our daily devotion. Today we'll be looking at Psalms chapter 89. So turn to your Bibles, either physical or digital, whichever is to your comfort. And we'll begin by looking at the context briefly before taking a short application from the Psalm. So let's look at the context first. So in this Psalm, Ethan is the one who's written the Psalm. First of all, he celebrates God's promise to Israel and Israel's king. But then continues to lament when he feels the promise has been broken. Now, based on this, we can safely connect the dots that Psalm has been written after the Babylon exile, after David's monarchy has collapsed. He recalls God's promise to establish the line of David forever. But for Ethan, his current reality is the king has been rejected, the nation seems defeated, and it looks like God has renounced and even abandoned the nation. So he goes on to say multiple ways. He uses several metaphors throughout the Psalms, like God calms the stormy waves, conquers his servants, and forever rules his people who love him, in verse 9 to 10. And then he pauses to recount the warning given by God to David's descendants in verse 30 to 32, and goes on to say, but the overall gist of it is that Ethan feels that God has abandoned Israel, renounced the covenant that he had made with Israel, and he's letting out his frustrations and he's lamenting. So this is what is going on in this psalm. So what can we take away from this? A simple one. Sometimes in our lives, similar to, in a way, the last psalm, we may feel isolated and alone, that God is not listening to our prayers, and that our circumstances don't seem to line with what God has promised to us, or what the kind of God we think He is, per se. That my situation is like this, but God, you are a God who does that, but my situation does not seem to, in a sense, reflect that. My situation seems completely hopeless. So I'd like to use an analogy to help us understand this. Imagine a big cruise ship and the anchor of the cruise ship. Now the anchor of the cruise ship is designed to go miles underneath the ocean to hold down the ship. Now when a sailor releases the ship's anchor, as soon as the anchor goes under the waves, it's all on faith, per se, that the sailor cannot see where the anchor is going, and the sailor can only hope that the anchor goes down and anchors at a good strong point. So similarly, that when our faith and when our lives, it seems turbulent. So take your life as a cruise ship. When you feel like you're in a storm and that the waters are very rough, and that it seems you are alone, it's full of storm, and in that time, in those moments, our soul's anchor should be in God. That you should know that throughout this storm, throughout these struggles, at the end, sufferings, at the end of the tunnel, us anchoring our trust and faith in God, we will come out of this, and we will come out of this a better testimony for God's faithfulness. So we should know that lament, in a sense, it's okay to lament, but lament is not unbelief. So you should not use this as an excuse to be unfaithful. Lament here by this psalmist is not unbelief, but a complaint. As we can say, it's okay to lament and let God know what you feel like is broken a promise. But it's not okay to resolve your heart that He has broken His promise. It's okay to let God know that you feel like He's broken His promise, but it's not okay to resolve in your heart that He has broken a promise. So in simple words, it's okay for you to think that He has broken a promise, but it's not okay for you to believe that He has broken a promise. With that takeaway, I'd like to end with a small question for you guys to ponder on and reflect on. So when life feels completely opposite to what God has promised, how can you still lament to Him or cry to Him without losing trust in what He has said. So think about this in your life situations where you feel like you cry to Him, but how will you cry without losing trust in Him? Thank you.